In a world haunted by power, corruption, and control, few stories in Street Fighter are as quietly tragic and quietly resilient as that of Ed and Falke. Born in suffering, shaped by cruelty, and scarred by psycho power, they are more than just survivors. They are the aftermath. But in the ashes of Shadaloo, they didn't seek revenge. They found each other and chose something no one expected: hope. This is the story of two fractured souls who came together not to rule, but to heal, to build something better, to become a light for others like them, a beacon to those still lost in the dark. Engineered and raised in the nightmarish depths of Shadaloo's research labs, Ed's purpose wasn't simply to become a soldier. He was built for utility. Ed was genetically designed to serve as a potential vessel to Bison, a living backup drive for the dictator's soul. Not valued as a person, but as a contingency plan. We first glimpse Ed's suffering in Rose's ending in Street Fighter IV, where a suppressed memory surfaces, unlocked when Bison extracts the fragment of himself he had implanted within Rose back in the Alpha Free era. In this haunting vision, we see a young Ed undergoing horrific experimentation. At some point, Ed is then taken by SIN, Shadaloo's weapon division, led by Seth, who rose up against Bison. There he is locked away, and the experiments continue, until the facility is destroyed during an infiltration by Chun-Li, Guile, and Abel. But Ed's salvation doesn't come from any one of these heroes. It comes instead from one of Shadaloo's most brutal enforcers, Balrog. At first, the boxer saves Ed for selfish reasons, a living investment, a weapon he could cash in on. But something changes, and over time, Balrog, gruff, violent, and far from gentle, becomes an unlikely mentor. A father figure, he teaches Ed how to fight, how to survive, and in his own twisted way, how to think for himself. Ed often tags along on Balrog's missions for Shadaloo, but he has not escaped the curse of Bison's power. The experiments accelerated his growth, aging him rapidly from a young boy to a teenager in a matter of years. And worse, his dreams became battlegrounds, the nightmares prophetic and soaked in fear and fire, hinting at a future where he would no longer be in control of his own mind and body. While out on a mission with his mentor, he crosses paths with Menat, apprentice to the fortune-teller Rose. She seems incredibly drawn to him, and reads his future cryptically, saying, "You two will have rough times." Ed assumes she's speaking of him and Balrog, but soon, after facing a monstrous echo of Bison in a dream, he understands. Menat wasn't talking about the boxer, she meant someone else. Someone just like him. Haunted by the vision and desperate to escape the shadow of his creation, he makes a choice. In order to protect the only person he's come to care for, Ed tells Balrog he has to go it alone, feeling that he will drag his mentor into a situation he can't control. Balrog scoffs at the idea. He tells Ed he's too weak to hurt him, and dares him to try. They fight, and Ed wins. What follows is a rare moment of vulnerability. Balrog, defeated, doesn't lash out in a violent rage. He just turns his back and tells Ed to get lost. The words sting, but the silence that follows says more. He isn't angry because he lost a fight. He's hurt because he might have lost a son. And so, Ed leaves in search of the one in Menat's prophecy, to find his own purpose, and a future he can claim as his own, not as Bison's vessel or as Balrog's protege, but simply as himself. In one of Shadaloo's many cold, clinical laboratories, Falke was engineered from birth. A living experiment designed to channel psychopower through any object she touched. She was conditioned to obey without hesitation, molded into the perfect spare body, a backup, a contingency, just like Ed. But unlike Ed, Falke had no one. No guardian, no mentor, only silence. Years of psychic manipulation and isolation wore her down. On the surface, she remained calm, composed, precise and obedient. But behind that stillness, she was quietly falling apart. Forced to suppress every flicker of resistance and accept her fate, she became a ghost in her own body. And then one day, everything changed. A young man, scarred by similar experiments, haunted by the same nightmares, broke into the facility where Falke had spent her entire life. It was Ed, someone like her, someone who understood. And in that moment, he did what she had long believed impossible. He freed her. Not just from the facility, but from the crushing solitude she could never escape on her own. Together, they fled, two survivors of the same monstrous system, and as they navigated the world beyond Shadaloo, they began searching for others like themselves. Forgotten souls with broken lives. Not only did they face ghosts from their past, but more importantly, they began to build something new. Not to seek vengeance, but out of a shared hope that maybe, just maybe, what had been broken could still be made whole. When Shadaloo fell, the world celebrated. But for those born in its shadow, the collapse left only silence. For them, freedom didn't arrive with parades and pageantry, it arrived with uncertainty. A sudden, terrifying freedom. Ed and Falke, shaped by suffering, were unsure of what came next. But instead of disappearing, they chose to build. Not some hidden fortress, nor a cult hungry for power. What they created was far more fragile. They formed a group that became known as Neo Shadaloo. But where the old Shadaloo dehumanized its soldiers, Neo Shadaloo offered sanctuary, a place for test subjects with no homes, survivors from a machine that used them up and moved on. Ed and Falke didn't gather them as weapons, they simply welcomed them as people. Ed, who was once a pawn in a tyrant's game, suddenly found himself thrust into leadership, not as a warlord and certainly not as a prophet, just a young man trying to give others what he never had, a home and a choice. The psycho power within him, and within the others that he saved, was dangerous, but Ed made a decision. Instead of running from it, he would harness it to protect and heal. He became a symbol, not of domination, but of self-mastery, of choosing one's own path. Falke, more introverted, became the group's conscience. She guided others, watched over them, and supported them with quiet strength. If Ed was the storm, she was the calm. His brash confidence, no doubt influenced by years alongside Balrog, was tempered by her cautious, almost maternal presence. Together, they didn't seek to bend the world to their will, they were just trying to mend one corner of it. But Shadaloo's shadow is long, and nothing born from it escapes cleanly. Old ghosts still cling to the past, ready to claim the name Neo Shadaloo for themselves. Some out of fanaticism, others out of ambition. Zealots like Falke remain loyal to a dead tyrant, convinced Bison's return is not only possible, but inevitable. They scour the world for traces of the dictator's essence, desperate to bring him back. Then there are the manipulators, men like JP, who speak with a silver tongue and wear civility like a mask. He flatters Ed, whispers about destiny, and suggests the boy take Bison's throne. But JP doesn't want an heir, he wants a puppet. With enemies like these invoking the name of Neo Shadaloo for their own ends, Ed has no interest in claiming it. He walks a different path now, one that leaves the past buried. Then there are wild cards like Seth, a synthetic humanoid, originally built as a replacement body for Bison, formerly leader of SIN, now delusional, clinging to a shattered identity, still out there somewhere, hunting down any entity with psycho power. For all of these reasons, Ed's group must move across the world in secret. Their mission is still to find others like themselves, but it's a mission that most recently, in Street Fighter VI, may have led to tragedy. Falke, protector, guide, and co-founder, has gone missing. Her last known location, Nashal, a city shrouded in corruption, where she was investigating JP's activities. What has happened to her remains unknown. Was she captured, wounded, or worse? Ed is concerned, and he has every right to be, because for the first time in a long while, the world that he and Falke have fought to build is at risk of falling apart. Ed and Falke were never supposed to survive. Their creators stripped them of choice, identity, and even time, all in the service of a man who believed the world could only be ruled through fear. But in the ruins of his empire, something unexpected bloomed. Humanity. They didn't seek to replace Bison. They didn't want thrones or armies. What they built was smaller and quieter. A bastion against the forces that still try to cling to power. But, with Falke missing, and shadowy forces moving once more, Ed is left to carry the weight of everything they built. Everything they hoped for. He's no longer that scared child locked in a lab, or the teenager shaped by another man's fists. He is his own person, and the choice before him is the same one he's faced his entire life. Let the darkness define him, or light the way forward. In a world still haunted by monsters with human faces, hope is rebellion, and survival is just the beginning. Let us know in the comments what you think lies ahead for Ed and Falke. Will the pair find peace, or has the curse of Bison's legacy buried deeper than even they know? And if you enjoyed exploring their story, give the video a like, and subscribe for more thematic character lore. Until next time, be excellent to yourselves and to one another, and I'll see you soon.